He was very
Shir is dedicated. Tell us for a minute.
Thank you, Rabbi Haber, for dedicating the shir to the memory of my grandmother, Shoshana Bas Yehuda Leib, who I grew up with my whole life, and she was a strong supporter of Eretz Yisrael, Ethiopian Jewry, supported my Torah learning, and she lived to the age of 107.
Wow.
Zichrona Livracha.
Wow. $107. Okay, Bigadol, we've been speaking about the koach of a minhag, speaking about this for weeks, and established within that according to most poskim, the Chavas Yair, the Rivosh, most of the Gedolei poskim, the whole idea of minhag is only established by your makom. In Shas, we find minhag makom. So minhag makom is if you live in Varsha, you keep the minhagim of Varsha. If you live in Yerushalayim, you keep the minhagim of Yerushalayim, if there are. Like that. It goes by the minhag makom, as opposed to, obviously, the minhag avoisav. Minhag avoisav, we don't find much of a makar for that in halacha, that you have to keep what your father kept. So if your father made kiddush sitting down, doesn't mean you have to make kiddush sitting down, etc. Or standing up or whatever. Even so far, we talked about this, I don't want to repeat it, even so far as nusach, we find in the poskim that there's flexibility. Like if you're davening in a place, let's say your father kept nusach svard, he comes from Poland, or did what your grandfather did, and they keep nusach svard, and then you go to a Litvish yeshiva, they daven nusach Ashkenaz, and like your whole life is nusach Ashkenaz. So although nobody should be floating between the nuschais, one week like that, one of the poskim say this. It's not recommended. You should daven one nusach and try to stick with it. But it goes by, sof kol sof, it's a minhag. This nusach, that nusach is a minhag. And we learned at the beginning that, in fact, some nuschais, nusach Ashkenaz, according to many poskim, is more meduyak than nusach Sfard, and more meduyak even than the Sfardim. That's nusach Hari, but nusach Hari is a whole different thing. And so that goes by minhag makom by and large. There are certain universal minhagim that become universal minhagim. That means it's the minhag of all mekoymos. It could be something like wearing a yarmulke. Men wearing a yarmulke is the minhag. So it's not a din. You're not going to find it in the Chumash anywhere, or in the Gemara even. You're going to find ramazim to it. But the minhag is that's how we identify as a Jew by wearing a yarmulke ad kedei kach, that according to many poskim, even in emergency, you're not allowed to take it down. Even if this is my Judaism I'm taking down, even though it is a shmat on your head. But the fact of the matter is that this is how things were created. These are things that we've talked about, the miftah, what the miftah is, how does that work with minhagim. And we came last week to the Mishnah in Ksuvos, which talks about when one is allowed to divorce his wife and not even give her a ksuva, anything, like just out of here. And that has to do with Oiveres Haldas Moshe v'Yehudis, the Mishnah says. And Ksuvos, we're going to go back to that Mishnah in a minute. It's a very important Mishnah. But there we see a new concept that we don't see anywhere else of das, that's dalid tav. No, not das, but das, meaning the culture, like a dati. Like the culture of Yehudis, culture of Moshe. Yehudis doesn't mean the woman Yehudis, it means Jewish women. That's what it means. Das Moshe means Moshe. We know what Moshe means so far. And we have a new idea. And what I explained last week, one of the most famous things you get from Das Moshe, Das Yehudis, not the only thing, is that women should cover her hair. So Isha Hayotzas, a woman who goes out with her hair, in an act of rebellion. I'm not covering my hair. My hair's all over the place, and like I'm a wild woman. So that's Oiveres Aldas. She is then Oiveres Aldas Yehudis, says the Mishnah, and Yotza b'lek suva. Like it's a form of rebellion. On that, the Gemara asks, and I'm going to get back to this a little bit. What do you mean, Das Moshe, Das Yehudis? That's already deraisa. It's already deraisa that women have to cover their hair, which we learn, as I explained last week, from the from the psukim of Saita, but I want to go over this again because I want to be madgish the point. We learn from the psukim of Saita that we see when a Saita comes, the whole purpose of her coming to the Beis Hamikdash and to the Kohen, and she did something wrong, is the Kohen is trying to be mavaza her. The Hadja is trying to be mavaza her. So one of the things he does is paras Rosh Isha. He takes off her head covering. So first of all, she was wearing one. That's the first thing. But the Rashi and Chumash says it even deeper. So she was wearing it, takes it off. Why is that? So Rashi and Chumash says by this pasuk paras Isha bashma. From here we learn shegenai hula. Says Rashi. It's a genai for a woman to walk outside. So it's not just without her head covered. It's apparently what you see from Rashi, what you see from the Gemara, from the Mishnah, is that this Iveris al Das Yehudis, even though that's where we learn it's deraisa, but I just want to look at it a little bit deeper. Deraisa means, yes, it has its makar in the Torah by Saita. But it's not deraisa in the normal sense of the word, right? It's not the regular deraisa where it says loy signoi or loy sirtzach. It's not that kind of loy, don't go outside with your head uncovered. But what we do see is that it was the minhag of Bnei Yisrael to cover their hair. So even though it's deraisa, in other words, you find it in the Torah. So maybe why is it called Das Yehudis? It should be called Das Moshe. Maybe that's
the Gemara's kasha.
Das Moshe, the Gemara points out already, not everything there is deraisa either. It could be derabanan also. So
the Gemara is asking about terminology, not about halacha l'maisa.
Right. Why does it go on that list? If she goes out, she's Mechal Shabbos. But my nakuda here is without. I'm a little bit unfocused. I want to focus myself. The nakuda here that I want to bring out is even the covering your hair, which is, as the Gemara says, deraisa. It's deraisa, but it's a minig deraisa. It's a minhag. From Mikan, we see from here that women covered their hair. But why do they cover their hair? Because it's a mitzvah of the Torah of Beis Mikdash. We don't know why they covered their hair, because dignified women covered their hair. Maybe Lahavdil, the Queen of England, also went outside, she wore a hat. All right, dignified women covered their hair until women were liberated. They covered their hair. That was considered the dignity of a woman to cover her hair, to cover other parts of her body. So that's called das Yehudis, maybe das Moshe. But the point is, here's what I accomplished last week. I don't want to go into it again. This whole das thing. Daled Tov, Das Moshe, Das Yehudis, replace that word das with the word minhag, and everything makes sense. It's not, das means culture. It means, culture means minhag. This is how Bnei Yisrael go. And that's enough to be yotzei like suva, because it means to say you're not acting as a Jewish wife to me. Men can also mess up, by the way. I'm just so happy to be talking about women right now. It's a deep thing. It's not only that you're doing an avera. Could be she's doing an avera. She's not yotzei like suva. We don't know that. That's not even clear either, if she does some kind of an avera. But this is more like you're not acting as a Jewish wife. You're embarrassing me. You're not bringing my children up right. Koilanis, you're screaming in the house. Like you're screaming the neighbors. What's the neighbors? It's these are things which are we set up Harei Mekudeshes like Kiddas Moshe v'Yisrael. That was what we established under the chuppah, that everything should be Kiddas Moshe v'Yisrael, and you're not keeping up with those terms of Kiddas Moshe v'Yisrael. You're not bringing your children up the way Kiddas Moshe, like the minhagim of Klal Yisrael. Zebmendach. This is the main point here. What we see is that there's a whole body of halacha, which is mamish halacha, ad kadei getting divorcing and violating a ksuva agreement. There's a halacha of minhag.
When we say Kedas Moshe Yisrael, that gives the koyach to be oike kedushin. So that's a derisive
mamish. Mamish. Yeah. So what I'm trying to establish with all of this is so
it's not.
What is this koach?
Yeah.
What is this koach of minhag? Which is what we're talking about. What is the koach of minhag ad kedei kach?
So by that oike kedushin is also in the koyach minhag.
Yeah, it could be. There's such a thing.
It's like a t'nai that they gave Rishus to that.
It's not about oiker. It's about we married Kedas Moshe v'Yisrael. We're not keeping the rules. We're not keeping the like a t'nai. Let's call it like a t'nai. So what's the koach of this? We say Nisan you have a svar. What's the koach?
That's just the dinner not to be different. Like the kitas, state tires. That's when it's mamash, let's say, by the case of Erev Pesach. On the Lacha Erev Pesach, that's like
The Mishnah Makom Shinagu.
That's more of a dinner not to be different.
So you're saying this is a big deal in the Achron. You're saying that it all comes from Loisis Gaidu, like we're not supposed to make different kitos.
That's about the dinim, though. It's not individuals.
Oh. So, okay, so let's hold that thought because that's really the main thing, and whatever it is. I'm just, yeah.
Kedoshim to you also has like this aspect of non-defined things that.
So that's a different mechayiv than what Rav Nasan is saying. Kedoshim to you means like we're supposed, v'haya, or let me say a different pasuk. V'hayu machanecha kadosh. We're supposed to be kedoshim. Now, so here's the thing, like, are the women covering their hair because we're supposed to be kedoshim, or is it since it's the minhag for women to cover their hair? If you don't, you're not a kadosh. That's really a question. I want to show you something that I've been really. I have to admit this has been on my mind for years. Let's just move to again. I'm not giving shir about hair coverings or atznius. I'm just trying to understand the concept here. But we all know, and our Moshe Nefesh, for the Indian of Tznius Benashim. Tznius Benashim, the difference of you. Tznius Benashim. Tznius Benashim means that, every from school has the rules. Your elbow covered, your knees covered, your neck covered, collarbone, make sure you get the collarbone in there. If you're single, you don't have to cover your hair. If you're married, you have to cover your hair. That's Machayev, the whole din of Mechitza. But there's this idea of you have to be sanua. Where is Hilchos Tznius in Shulchan Aruch? It's like such an important thing. It's like 50% of the curriculum in Beis Yaakov. So like where is Hilchos Tznius in Shulchan Aruch? The answer is nowhere. There's no such thing, such an important thing. There's no such thing as Hilchos Tznius. To my knowledge, in the Arba Chelkei Shulchan Aruch, there's Hilchos Tznius of how one is supposed to be with their wife. There's that. There's a simon like that. But I'm talking about the Tznius that we're talking about, whatever you want to call it. Hilchos Malbushe B'nais Yisrael. However, if you were the Rabbi Yosef Karo, how would you name this simon? If you were the Rosh, how would you name this simon? There isn't. What there is Hilchos Kriyas Shema. So Hilchos Kriyas Shema is Meirich in this Inyan. Siman Ayin Hey is Meirich in this Inyan, and it says the title of the Siman is Lihizoyer Migilui Seir V'Kol Isha B'Shas Kriyas Shema, and this it does say in Shulchan Aruch, and really. I'm not talking here halacha l'maisa, so don't take me so seriously. But I'm just trying to learn it honestly with you. I'm saying lizoyer megiloi seir v'kol isha b'shas kriyas shema. That when you're saying kriyas shema, we learn from Sukkim that when you're saying kriyas shema, you have to be careful to say it in a holy way, in a holy place. And if I'm standing there in front of an image, which is a live image or even a not live image according to the poskim, or even a screen, erva ba'ashashis, so all those things take away from my. I'm not allowed to read Kriyas Shema there. Why? So either the pshat is in the Rishonim you find, either the pshat is sefelt in the kedusha. You have to have a certain kedusha, like you're saying, kedoshim to you. Certain kedusha of saying Kriyas Shema, and every davar should be kedusha. And it's felt in kedusha, just like, let's say, like you're not allowed to speak in Torah b'mavois hamtunafos. You're not allowed to speak Torah when you're walking down a street full of garbage. Not allowed. So it's like the kedusha of Kriyas Shema, davar should be kedusha, limud HaTorah. All those things are machayev, a pristine atmosphere. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is that it's distracting. If I'm going to be looking at Erva while I'm saying Kriya Shema. So what kind of Kriya Shema is that? Like it's right? So which anybody have an opinion which way it goes? I can't hear you. What the what?
I say with the feeling you can't even think about it.
Hearer.
Right. But isn't it also like erva davar? Like isn't that also encapsulated?
Lo yera b'cha ervas davar. So you're saying we don't have to have, and that's talking about by a davar shebekdusha.
Right.
Lo yera b'cha ervas davar is like when you go out to Milchama and the Aron Kodesh is around. So when there's Aron Kodesh around, you don't lo yera b'cha ervas davar. But so you're saying a davar pashat, it's a davar pashat that what is felt in kedusha. The what?
No, very careful not to even look at it, go backwards.
Right. Maybe that was covered. Maybe that was covered for Noah. So, Rabbi Ellen is right that the truth is we learn from Pasuk, V'ya machanecha kadosh, similar to what you're saying, kadoshim to you, and really has nothing to do with hearer, nothing to do with hearer.
If you don't have hearer, it's awesome.
Even if you don't have hearer, it's awesome.
Erva mamish?
What about not to do?
Is it something to do with the mitzvah that it needs Shabbat, like Shema needs Kavana, but if you do like Gula, is that also any mitzvah?
Probably. Davar shebekdusha. I would tell you something just to fast forward to the end, just popped in my mind. The Rogatchover appears on the Rambam. So the Rogatchover says that if you're talking Limud HaTorah and you come to Mekoimos Hamuvois Hamtunafis, coming to a dirty place, so he said that you should cover your mouth with your hand and talk, because that way you're making a chatzitza between the Torah and the So it sounds like he's learning like something completely different than the way I understand it. But ad kedei kach, he says that you're going to ask me, but your goof can't be choitzitz on the goof, like the Rambam says in a different place. Like if you're not wearing a yarmulke, it doesn't really help to go like that. And we find Hilchos Kriya Shema, so it doesn't help. So he answers that kasha with a bunch of bekiyas, but it's very interesting the way he sees the whole thing. So you cover your eyes. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So does that take care of it? So the Shulchan Aruch speaks about this. Maybe that's why we cover our eyes.
Even if you cover your eyes.
But you're saying halachas. I'm asking why.
Sorry,
No, you're right. I'm just saying, what's the din? But what about isha mipnei isha, isha lifnei isha, right? There's Yaacov party on the beach. So are they allowed to say Kriya Shema, one connected the other or not? What's the din?
Yeah.
Yes, no? What? No? You're saying this Erva Mamish thing. What are you saying? So
Like the case of the Gemara. Arm damage, in those cases, Tefa, Call.
No, I don't agree with you anymore.
What about making a bracha on a mikvah?
So she's covered with the water. That seems to be the mayim is covering her.
So Tuko, just go in a corner or something and on sand.
Do you have to? That's the question. So let me just tell you, the Ramah says, Hilchos Kriya Shema Siman Ayin Hey. The Ramah says, well, let's first the Siman Aleph. I'll just read you a little bit. Tefach megula be'isha b'makom shedarka lechasoisei. A tefach megula on something shedarka lechasoisei. Afilu hi ishtay aser likrais kriya shma kenegda. Yeshurun dafke be'ishtay. Al be'isha acheres. What it's mutter? No. Afilu pachais mitevach have erva. Says the Ramah as follows. Follow this Ramah carefully. I don't know if you've noticed it before. V'nira midivrei harosh. I'm reading the Ramah. V'nira midivrei harosh. It seems like the Rosh holds the tefach be'isha erva afilu le'isha acheres. That a tefach be'isha erva, this halacha of tefach be'isha erva, what's the halacha that you're not allowed to, let's make it easy, say Kriya Shema in front of a tefach be'isha erva, which everyone understands the term very, very precisely, meaning that erva is erva. But in order there's a shear, just like matzah has a shear. This has a shear also, and the shear of erva is tefach. So if you see like an inch of erva, that's not called seeing erva. You have to see a tefach in order for it to be a gilui of erva. That's what the word means. Tefach b'isha erva. So if it's less than a tefach, and which is 8 centimeters, and Rabbi makes all kinds of cheshbonos. If it goes this way, it goes that way, But let's say sar b'isha erva. So in order for it to be something that you can't read Kriya Shema, that's talking about a tefach b'isha. But then the Ramah told us, let's go back again, that's talking about with your wife. But if it's not your wife, unfortunately, the Ramah, dafke b'isha yavel b'isha acheres hafilu pachus mitefach, which is what? There's no shear. So even like this is mutter to say Kriya Shema, this is mutter with your wife, and something in between with everybody else, right? So tefach b'isha, otherwise you turn around. I mean, it's not if you're in a place, you're in the train, you're in the subway, something like that. So you turn around, but you're not allowed to say Kriya Shema. V'nira medivrei harash comes to Ramon, and he says, and it seems like from the Rosh to tefach b'isha erva, this din of tefach, the shear of tefach b'isha erva, afilu leisha acheres, is even a woman in front of a woman. That's what that means. Afilu leisha acheres. It doesn't apply to yourself, but applies to other women. So, a bunch of women in a locker room can't say Kriya Shema, according to this Ramah. Comes the Mishnah Berurah, let's learn the halacha. Midivrei harosh, which, by the way, in this Mishnah Berurah Menukad, it says harosh. I'm just telling you. Divrei harosh, aval, says the Mishnah Berurah. However, yes, the Ramah just said that. We go like the Ramah. Aval harashba choylek alzeh. The Rashba doesn't hold that way. The Rashba disagrees with this Rosh. The Taimai, what's the reason for the Rashba? He doesn't hold this way, and he says what? Let's follow. That Isha bifnei Isha is mutter. Harash choylek alzeh v'taimai. The sphere leit dechihecha devatzma yechoyla likrois kishiyaruma almadein giloi kol gufa mishum v'lo yira b'chayr v'stavar. We see that if it's she herself, it's not considered ervas davar, right? Says the Rashba la noshim. The only reason why it's usher for men mishum hirur, because of hirur. Kain af isha acheres muteres likrois lispalo negda kishihi aruma. Why? Because there is no hearer, women to women. Ad kedei kach, that the other poskim say, is that for sure that there's no hearer, women to women? We're living in a strange generation here. The poskim asks this question, but women are becheskas, that they're not mahar one and the other. There's oddballs out there, but the normal people. So there's no hearer isha be isha, and for that matter, ish be ish l'chayra. There's no hearer. So therefore, says the Rashba, it's all mishum hearer anyway. So he argues, says the Rashba, he argues with the Ramah's rush that he brings, and he says a woman in front of a woman will be mutter. So before in the Mishnah Berurah is that before kenegdecha. Ba'achroinim, says the Mishnah Berurah further, maskimi mima Rashba. This is a gavaldik that the Mishnah Berurah goes against the Ramah, and he says the reason is because the Achronim seem to agree with the Rashba. V'daitam, and their opinion is the Gam Harosh Moidilazeh, that the Rosh even would agree with. In other words, the Heter to agree with the Rashba, not agree with the Ramah, with the Rosh, is they think the Rosh would agree with it, but the Ramah didn't learn that way. Our minhag is to paskin like the Ramah. But the Ramah didn't learn that way, but we don't do like this Ramah. Here, if somebody asks you, where's a Ramah we don't keep? It's this one. And that is that Isha, Bifnei Isha, is mutter to likrei Kriya Shema. But the deep thing here that the Rashba is being Megala, as opposed to the Rosh, is that the whole thing of Erva has to do with Hirhur. That's That's the chiddush here. Not that we pass him like the Rosh, we pass him like the Rosh, not like the Rosh. It seems to be like a very essential machlokas, the Rashba and the Rosh, whether the whole thing of erva, the whole din of erva, has to do with hirur, or is it just like the wrong thing to do? Like you said, kedoshim to you.
Moshe has Moshe has a truth about going to work in the summer in the city. So over there, he goes right. He says even without hirur, it's a bittul of kedoshim tiyu because it's garim a mikvah lev. It's a physiological reaction that feel without hirur. So he said, but he makes it like the kedoshim tiyu is a din in the gavra.
Okay.
So basically, we're talking about kedoshim tiyu as like there should be an atmosphere of kedusha. It's much from Moshe that when
let me insert a step between what I'm saying and what you're saying.
Okay.
We just learned what seems to be. By the way, I looked at the Rishonim inside, and it seems to be a pretty clear machlekes the Rosh and the Rashba. They by the way, this is ongoing machlekes even all the way back to Siman Aleph and Ruach Ra, the Rosh and the Rashba, very similar machlekes, but that's not for now. But you can make a l'shitosai in this whole story over here. It seems to be that the Rosh holds that erva is something which is, let's call it a chesaron and kedusha, whatever you want to do. It's just something that you cannot say kriya shema or davar kedusha behind it. It doesn't make any difference if what your mind is. And the Rashba says, what do you mean? It's only because it's maybe l'dei hirur. Like a whole different idea. It's maybe l'dei hirur. So if it's not maybe l'dei hirur, then there's nothing wrong with it, like a woman to a woman. Now, let's say, let me just give a classic example, and then I want to get to what you're saying. Let's say you're blind, or it's pitch dark, or one way or the other, you're blindfolded, or whatever it is. So then, it should be totally in the machlekes the Rosh and the Rashba, because if it's maybe l'dei hirur, there's no hirur. If it's because ba'atzim it's erva, so then it's usher. Here, yes, here or not here, it doesn't make any difference. So what's the din? What's the din by a blind man? So if we turn a couple of pages in the Shulchan Aruch, same siman, Shulchan Aruch, now we're not talking about the Ramah, the Shulchan Aruch says, Haisa erva kenegdai, v'hechsir panav mimeno, you turn away your face, Oy, she'atzam einav, or you close your eyes. Oy, shehu balayla, or it's dark. Oy, shehu suma, or you're blind. Mutter likrais, you're allowed to say kriya shema, deberia talarachmana v'ha loy chazile, because it has to do with riya, and lamaisa you're not seeing it. So l'chayra, a little bit different than hearer. But
there's no hero without Riyah.
Right. That's, by the way, all that is the Lashon of the Rambam. That's Mamash Lashon of the Rambam, according to the Beragoyla. Haisa erva kenegdoi. So here's your case. Erva kenegdoi. So it would seem like a Pashan and Afkamina, like the Ramah is bringing Isha lifnei Isha, where there's no hearer. But also, if you don't see, there's no hearer. I mean, you don't know to be Mahara. you don't even know what's going on.
What about like with like Kolisha? There's a discussion right. If you know what the woman looks like, it might be worse than if you don't know what the woman looks like. Even if she's not there.
There, the question is when it says Kolisha, it's which part of it is maybe l'dei hirur? That's the shaila over there. Is it the voice itself, the singing itself, or is it the? So Kolisha is a very, very good. What do you want to say? I'm sorry.
Similar question. If we're talking about seeing and hearing, I could understand a blind man who never saw it in the first place, didn't know it was there. If I didn't know it was there, then that's how it will impact my concentration. But just turning away, your brain still knows what is behind you. So
Okay.
that wouldn't help.
You're saying a cognitive.
Yeah.
So I want to read you the Mishnah Berurah, which is exactly like as Anil says. Oishatzam einav, you close your eyes. Hachreinim eskimu. The chol elu ha'etzos levad me'achzaris panim loy mahani. Like Sivalai Sirel of La Yira. It's Lima La Yira Haroya Fila Hazaris Panam Shahuter who racked Afkim Hexer Kol Gufa, Loimid Bitzad Acher. Nasas Arava Mitzidai. Avlim Hexer Panam Lavad, Loimahani. You have to turn your whole body away. And then he says that all of this in the Be'er Halacha, he fills in over here, that these eitzos b'chlal, this is the Be'er Halacha, are only going to, they're only going to work, and this is really the main thing I wanted to say, they're only going to work by a gilui tefach be'erva. Masha ein kein be'erva mamish. So this is where you're right and this is where you're wrong. Like there a new chiluk. There's a new chiluk between erva mamish and a tefach megula, which we all understand. That there's a difference. So all of this helps, like you close your eyes, all of those things help when we're talking about the tefach be'isha erva. So like the Gemara says, shoik be'isha erva, sar be'isha erva, kol be'isha erva. There's no tefach by a kol. But all of those things, those are things where turning around, and those are things that'll work these eitzes. And I want to touch this up for you. Vashen came erva mamish. Okay, this is a new halacha. So that, like b'hayamachanecha kadosh, that already has to do with kedusha. It's just not the right thing. What you have over here is a fascinating thing, that you have those things. You have those things that are be'etzem erva, and the things that became erva over the years. See, here's my question. Let me just wind down here. All this Hilchos Snius, I ask, where is this in the Shulchan Aruch? Not. Where we have Hilchos Kriyas Shema. Okay, let's talk about Kriyas Shema. Who said it's talking about how people have to walk down the street? I'm asking a hard question. Who state this? It's talking about Hilchos Kriyas. Okay, I'm not saying Kriyas right now. I am in a secular mood. I'm at work. I'm not thinking about. I'm an accountant. I'm not. So Kriyas Shema B'Seder. Close your eyes, say Kriyas Shema. Turn your head. Go to the other room. Go to shul. But shul, mechitza, everything. But where do we have this halacha from? Where do we have this halacha of tznius b'chlal?
Hayalo derech acheres afilo otzim of nikra Russia.
The osir lihistakel.
No, afilo otzim einav nikra Russia. Where zero.
Nazir. So So here's the missing piece, which we have to find in the Rishonim. I believe it's there, but it comes out of this whole thing. That at the end of the day, what happened was that since in Hilchos Kriyas Shema we find that tefach be'isha erva, so we see already it's a problem with kedusha here. Yeah, that there is a problem with kedusha. So Mamela, it became the minhag of Bnei Yisrael and Klal Yisrael to live a holy life and to cover those things which are mevi lidei hira. In other words, like the way to learn it is, I think, that the halacha is in Hilchos Kriyas Shema, but it's not because it's usher in Kriyas Shema. Listen to me carefully. Give me one second. Listen carefully. It's not because of Hilchos Kriyas Shema that the Bnei Yisrael covered themselves up. It's because the Bnei Yisrael covered themselves up that there's a din of Hilchos Kriyas Shema that you're not allowed to read Kriyas Shema Kenegdom. Other way around. Meaning what the Hilchos Kriyas Shema is an example, an afkamina. It's an example of Hilchos, of where Hilchos Snius comes to place. Let me say it in different words. That if the Mishnah Ksuvas tells us that if a woman walks out in the street with her whatever uncovered, so she's yoitza b'loi ksuva, so memela, we see that that's a makam mechusa. We see that by Bnei Yisrael, unser Teir Yidinus, you see that they cover these things. Once it becomes a Makam Mechusa, so now you can't read Kriya Shema in front of it also. That's the mashmois of the Rishonim. You get it? Not that because it's Asher B'Kriya Shema, somehow or another we extended that to it became the Minhag Klal Yisrael. So like if some, which you hear all the time, like women say, like, well, the whole thing of Erva is, the whole thing of Tznius is that it brings Lidei Hirur of men. So a lot of women are uncomfortable. It's like, you have a problem with Hirur, means I got to dress differently, right? That's we've all heard v'chuli, v'chuli, v'chuli. We all hear that, but it's not a good question. This question, because the point is, if you say it's maybe Lidei Hirur, maybe you're getting into the original idea of it, but the point is that Bnei Yisrael hichmir al atzman, and this is something that Bnei Yisrael took upon themselves. Because of Kedoshim to you, probably. This is something they took upon themselves, and they created Makom Mechusa Minhag Yisrael, to create Makom Mechusa where other nations of the world didn't bother. Isn't fascinating, by the way, Al-Havdalah, is that the whole Iranian Revolution is all about taking off your shaitel, like, or whatever. Like it's the whole world, which could become a world war. So women burning their tichels in public. It's half of a fellow. So can you can just understand that before. Before the 1800s, like before already in the 19th century, it was a davar pasha that was women covered their hair because of dignity, probably. So it's not a good question to say you have hirhurim, so I've got to cover my sleeves. I don't want to. No, you have to do this because this is the
behavior. This is the
behavior of Bnei Yisrael, even l'chayr when nobody is around. Now Kriya Shema. Now let me just say this. I'm with you. Let me say this. However, and this is the big however here. Everybody with me until now? The Hilchos Snius, what we would call today Hilchos Snius Nashim, is of Bnei Yisrael Hichmir al Atzman. Just like so many other things, like the Gemara says that all this that we do in Hilchos Nida, the kisamim and checking and bedikas and running to my mailbox and all that. So where does it come from? Like where does it come from? Don't say that in the Chumash. I guess you become a nida. So the answer is that they got confused. The Gemara says, what's a nida, what's a zava? They got all confused. And Bnei Yisrael hichmira al atzman afilu roya tipas dam kechardol yosheves alav zayin nikim. Tipas dam kechardol. It's not a flow. It's not anything. So what? Bnei Yisrael hichmira al atzman. Those are gesund. Like Bnei Yisrael hichmira al atzman. So we all have to go through this ksamim. It's derabanan. All the ksamim. What's the pshat? So Amar Abzera, this is Amar Abzera, Bnei Yisrael Hichmir al Atzman. The pshat is that that's a history lesson. That the Bnei Yisrael Hichmir al Atzman. They took this on as a chumrah of Yerushalayim, but be'etzem it became the halacha. It became that minhag Hichmir al Atzman. That became the halacha. The context of this Gemara is by Ksamim Heichid Dame Halacha Psuka. The Gemara says, like this halacha, of all the halachas to say halacha psuka, this is the halacha that you have to keep ksamim, because the Bnei Yisrael ichmir al atzma. Halacha psuka, yeah, clear. Like sometimes, like you have to say a halacha psuka, it should be clarity, right? So this is a case of halacha psuka. It means to say that, like people, their wife has a shaila and they have this and that, is it deraisa, is it derabanan, blah blah. Halacha psuka, don't even think about it anymore. It's not something. This is a halacha psuka. But where does it come from? So what kind of a din does that have? Say all the rishonim. It has right there in Brachas Chavdal. Say all the rishonim. What kind of a din does it have? It has a din of a neder, but it's a neder of a whole rabbim that you can't. Nobody can go make hataras nadarim on a neder of a rabbim. It's like chayrim derabbeinu gershon. Can't make it. So it comes out something very, very interesting. What we're learning today. Let me just to sum it up. What we're learning here is that some things are usher because of the minhag of Bnei Yisrael. And what's the toikev of the minhag of Bnei Yisrael? It's a din of neder. That's what the Rishonim say. Where hinhigu, like we say in Erev Rosh Hashanah, lahakti is a gibel pamim le'amarti b'li neder. So when the whole tzibur takes on a neder, it's a neder. So just like the din of ksamim, there's the din of tznius, and the din of tznius manifests itself by Hilchos Kriya Shema. It's not the other way around. However, here's what the Mishnah makes a difference, and let me say this: that there's a difference between Das Moshe and Das Yehudis. What's the difference? The difference is that there are minhagim. And I'm going to leave it at this sentence here. There are minhagim which are fluid, flexible, gamish, and there are minhagim which are not. And the difference between them is Das Moshe, Das Yehudi. It doesn't mean, Das means minhag. So whether it's a minhag by Moshe Rabbeinu or it was a minhag by all Jewish women, the difference is in the flexibility. So, and I'm calling from the Rishonim. For instance, Erva Mamish, that's Das Moshe. No flexibility. And that's probably what the Rosh meant also. Tefach B'isha Erva, like if there's a Tefach Megula, Shoik B'isha Erva, Sar B'isha Erva, more probably D'Rabbanans, but those are things that are Das Yehudis. So there is some flexibility on it. I'm not recommending flexibility. I'm just saying there is some flexibility. The flexibility goes like this, that like the Aruch HaShulchan says, famously, or Moshe agrees with, that, okay, look, nowadays, in his time, nobody covered their hair. So if nobody covers their hair, so it's not Mevi Lidei here, there's a regulus to it. So why can't I say Kriya Shema? So he says, but you have it. That's all the Aruch HaShulchan says. You could be down l'kav schus of people who say Kriya Shema when women don't cover their hair around them. Don't misread the Aruch HaShulchan. He's not saying you don't have to cover your hair because nobody covers your hair. He's saying there's some flexibility in Hilchos Kriya Shema. Does that mean you're allowed to walk down the street that way? No. But like when it comes to Hilchos Kriya Shema, there's some flexibility because it's tefach. So because it's Das, what he says, or Moshe explains, because it's Das Yehudis and not Das Moshe, right? Understand?
It's not market.
It's not right. So you're not market, right?
Give me that in the right.
Correct. Here, halacha l'maisa. On Das Yehudis, or they're all minhagim of Yisrael. The only question is how much minhag. How strong are they? Are they a minhag that everybody was makabel themselves, or is it sort of door l'dor? So Das Moshe, no flexibility. Once you know Erev Mamish is flexibility, and it doesn't even help on that atzimas einayim. It doesn't help to close your eyes on Erev Mamish. You have to mamish your own because it's Erev Mamish. It's Das Moshe. If it's Das Yehudis, so that's because of Hirur. You following me? That's all because of Hirur, and since it's because of Hirur, so it helps if there's no Hirur. So the whole machlekes, the Rosh and the Rashba, is okay. What about a case Isha B'Isha where there's no Hirur? So if there's no Hirur, so on the Das Yehudis you can be Mekel. On the Tefach, but on the Erev Mamish you can't be Mekel. So here you have, this is Miyashim, all the stiras, why sometimes you have to go completely turn the other direction. I was sitting once to tell you, I hope I'm being clear here because it's a complicated subject. I was sitting once in a taxi with Rav Scheinberg, Zecher Tzadik L'Vracha. So I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember, but at those times the taxis had 3 rows. So like these long Mercedes with 3 rows. You ever see them? Yeah. So years ago, that's what a taxi was, like a Sheirut, So we're going to Bnei Brak. Even remember it for Scheinberg was giving a hesped for the son of Rav Shmuel Birnbaum, who was shot and killed in the Galei Tzanz, near the Galei Tzanz hotel. That's what I'm talking about. And we were all shaken up by it. And Rav Scheinberg went to Bnei Brak to give a hesped, and I accompanied him. So we're sitting in the back seat, Rav Scheinberg, towels, tefillin, the whole business. And me, back seat. Then there was the middle, and then the front seat. There was this. It was a sheirim. In the front seat there was this somebody didn't seem to be dati, a woman whose hair was like mamish flying in the wind, with the window opens before air conditioning. And the situation, Rav Scheinberg had this chumrah that you have to eat, make a bracha before you make tefillas haderech. You have to make a bracha. Rishon, a lot of people have this thing. So you make a bracha. So he goes into his pocket and he takes out one of his things that his wife made for him, like a fish ball. And he's going to make a shakol liyabigvaroi, and then he's going to make a tefillas haderech. So I said to him, what about the woman in the front? He said, what woman? Okay, so that was my busser schmooze for the for the evening. But right. But I did notice that right before he made the bracha and tefillas haderech, he went like this, and he made the bracha and he made tefillas haderech. He turned in the other direction. Huh?
Kollel goof, not just
hair.
No, but
he turned Kollel goof. Yeah, he turned Kollel goof. Okay, it was a nice Rav that I remember, and a horrible mice about me.
So Erva Mamish, is that's Moshe? That's Torah.
That's Moshe. Erva Mamish. This you're going to see. I haven't got time to spell it all out because it's time.
That's Ma'akev?
Yes. You have to daven again. Yeah.
That error goes away just because you do it. It's in your head already.
Enough of it goes away. The active hearer goes away. That's what the halacha says. Okay, maybe